My brothers and sisters, my dearest children, there is a beautiful hadith that the Prophet ﷺ used to recite in the evening by the time he goes to bed, in which he says, Alhamdulillah alladhi at'amana wa saqana wa kafana wa awana fakam man la kafiya lahu wa la mu'ya lahu. Translation of this beautiful hadith, which is a dua the Prophet ﷺ used to reflect on and contemplate on by the end of his day. By the time he make his way to bed, he would be reflecting on the gracious bounties of Allah Azza wa Jal upon him by saying, Alhamdulillah, praise be to the Mighty, Alladhi at'amana, the one who have fed us, wasaqana, watered us, wakafana, gave us what we need, wa awana, and provided for us a shelter, fakam mimman la kafiya lahu wa la mu'ya lahu. How many are there who has no one to provide for them and has no shelter to live under? And he used to continue this pattern of thinking to Allah Azza wa Jal, thanking to Allah Azza wa Jal by saying in the morning to the companions around him, Man asbaha minkum aminan fi sirbihi. Who is among you, the Sahaba of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is aminan fi sirbihi, in peace, in tranquility, in comfort. Sirbihi, as the Mufassirun said, and the ulama, property, family members. Mu'afan fi jasadihi, with complete health in his body. Indahu qutu yawmihi, has what sustains him and his family members for the day. فَكَأَنَّمَا حِيزَتْ لَهُ الدُّنْيَا, as if you were to be a person who have possessed the whole world. These are beautiful advices from Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the Sahaba around him, probably at the beginning of each day, to remind them about the gracious bounties of Allah Azza wa Jal unto them, and to remind them that they need to be thankful. They need to contemplate and reflect on the fact that if we were to be living with the necessities of our living, we should not be whining and complaining. And keep in mind that there are others who might not have the same chances and possibilities and provision that we have within our position. Let us reflect and contemplate into what's happening in the Muslim Ummah around the globe. And more specifically today, allow me to be addressing what's happening in Gaza. This particular part of the world, or the Muslim Ummah, which was exposed for over 13 months, we're now in the 14 months, in which by a genocidal war, a war that is unjustified, a war that is declared by the International Court of Justice as being unfair, needs to stop, because there is no point for the one army that is packed by the superpowers of the earth to be killing that number of civilians and destroying the livelihood of individuals, primarily children, women, and elders. If we were to contrast what happened in 1945 during the First World War or the Second World War, when the bomb was thrown into Hiroshima, and contrast it in the 2024 and see what is happening in Gaza, we'll see that a bomb was thrown in Hiroshima with the magnitude of 13 tons. 13,000 tons. That's 13 million magnitude of bombing thrown into Hiroshima. in a geographical area of 905 square kilometers. Now, after this tragedy, humanity have lived in the First and Second World War, and after the establishment of what's so-called the United Nations and the different entities and universal justice bodies that are supposed to be providing and governing the livelihood of a human on earth, and despite of the availability of the evidences and despite of the involvement of social media in providing and sending a detailed by minute to what is happening on the ground in Gaza, we're seeing so far 80,000 tons of explosive has been dropped into Gaza, which is only 360 square kilometers in size. That's not even half the size of Hiroshima. And that's almost 6 times the amount that was dropped by the atomic bomb in Hiroshima. Yet, the whole world is still watching. The coward leaderships of humanity, and more specifically the advanced world countries, are still debating whether there is a real genocidal war or not. Well, we're not surprised, because what is happening in Gaza happened in other parts of the Muslim Ummah. We're not too far from what happened in Bosnia. We're not too far from what's continuously happening right now in Sudan. And we cannot forget in the land we're standing on what happened to the indigenous people, because history repeats itself. Because this ugly ideology of colonialism, imperialism, is repeating itself. This is the sad reality that we're living in the what's so-called advanced world. In what's so-called civilized world right now, we're bragging about the sophistication and technology. We're bragging about human rights, and we're hearing people and organizations interfering in different parts of the world, talking about slight violation of human rights. We're seeing scrutinies in Afghanistan to certain practices of why women are not getting their rights, and we're not against that, but there is slight violation to human rights and complete ignorance to the killing of civilians in other parts of the world. Why are the taxpayers of the American people contributing to the killing of civilians while they are struggling to provide the ends meet for their own families? Why are we in a beautiful country like this we're standing in, we're historically known to be a peace broker, is now supporting the genocidal war in Gaza? These are all questions that need to be brought to the surface, because we cannot afford to keep our eyes blind and to keep our mouth shut and to pretend to be mute, unable to hear what's happening into the Muslim Ummah. This is the reality, the ugly reality we're living in. Now, there are 2 types of people on earth. There are people of certain race and faith, and there are others who are of a different cultural background and faith that are not worthy to be paid attention to their suffering. That's the ugly reality we're living in nowadays. Before my khutbah, there was supposed to give a chance to a brother to speak to you who come from Gaza. Because of the time limitation, I said to him, what would you like to pass on to the brothers and sisters here in this masjid? And he said to me, that there are people who have had their shahada multiple times. There are people who have seen their own children dying in front of their own eyes. There are people who have seen their own family members, immediate family members, wives, spouses, mothers and fathers dying in front of their own eyes. And they were shuffled from one location to another location. They were physically injured. They have suffered the lack of eating and drinking. And then they eventually get their shahada there by themselves. This is what he meant by multiple shahada. It's sometimes less painful to end up having your shahada and exit this life without too much suffering. But there is an ugly reality to live the lifestyle that was deliberately orchestrated by the evil powers of the world to allow the people of Gaza live this multiple pain, multiple trauma that they are and their children are going through. I've said it in other places. No matter what happened afterwards, no matter how much resources we're going to be allocating to provide for the children of Gaza, we will not, and quote me right, we will not be able to heal their multiple traumas they are living in their life. These are not numbers. These are not just statistics. These are not them and us. When our children become sick, we become alarmed, and that's natural reaction because Allah Azza wa Jalla have put this rahmah in our hearts. But we fail to understand, and we actually have become numb when we watch the news and see what's on social media. We try to avoid it. We just want to pass it on because we do not have any more energy to feel that pain or to interact with it or to be able to do anything for it. That's the reality we have come into it. Our feelings have become numb, but the feelings of the children and the mothers and the parents in Gaza are not numb. They're still alive. They continue to feel the pain and the suffering. What are we preparing to provide an answer to the mighty Allah Azza wa Jal when we leave this dunya? When He says, He will be saying to us, Abdi, my servant, I was sick and you did not visit me. I was hungry and you did not provide for me. And when you will be saying in the Hadith Qudsi, as the Prophet ﷺ told us, Ya Allah, you are the mighty. How can I visit you? How can I feed you? He will be saying to you, did you not know that my servant was sick and hungry? And if you were to be there with them, then you will be seeing me there, or you will feel my presence with them. And realistically, we cannot be all together in Gaza. But luckily, we do have a group of individuals who have taken upon themselves the responsibility to say, on behalf of the 2 billion ummah, we're going to be doing something to the 1%, the 1.27 or close to 2 billion. And by the way, the number of those who have been dislocated from their actual places of living, because we cannot call it homes anymore because Gaza is no longer a city, it's flattened, is more than 75% in a very small geographical area. And these cowards, leaders of the world, continue to keep a blind eye and say, well, we're not seeing a real violation to human rights. Well, excuse me, you are coward. You are hypocrites, whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim. Because it's a relevant of the faith. You should have this moral conscience in your heart and might make you lose sleep overnight when you see what's happening to the children of Gaza. And we say to the people of Gaza, وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَعَمَلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كَمَا اسْتَخْلَفَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ وَلَيُمَكِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ دِينَهُمُ الَّذِي ارْتَضَى لَهُمْ وَلَيُبَدِّلَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ خَوْفِهِمْ أَمْنًا يَعْبُدُونَنِي لَا يُشْرِكُونَ بِي شَيْئًا. Allahu Akbar. We say to the children of Gaza, to the elders of Gaza, to the women of Gaza who have made themselves rooted in the land, Allah is giving you the victory. Let's react upon being part of that victory. As I mentioned, these brothers, may Allah bless them, are working very hard on the land in Gaza. Despite of the siege and the difficulties and all the restrictions that are imposed on their work, They're able to provide 6,000 meals a day to the children in Gaza. They're able to provide 300,000 liters of water on a daily basis to the people of Gaza, which is a basic commodity that should be provided without any struggles to any person living on this planet we call the earth. There's about 1,000 packages, food partials that are distributed to the people in Gaza, which is only a half of a drop maybe, or a quarter of a drop in a bucket, a huge bucket. There are 4 clinics which supports the borders with the Doctors Without Borders work in Gaza. May Allah Azza wa Jal enable us to be able to do something that would be alleviating partially the suffering of these individuals who have stood for the Muslim Ummah, and may Allah Azza wa Jal pour the patience and rahmah on their hearts. Allahumma ameen. Wa qul qawli hadha wa astaghfirullah li wa lakum fastaghfiruhu fa yafawz mustaghfirin. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا وسيئات اعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا ان الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا ايها الذين امنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم وبارك اللهم على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم في العالمين انك حميد مجيد اللهم ان عبيدك ابناء عبيدك ابناء امائك نواصينا يا رب بيدك ماض يا رب فينا حكمك عدل فينا قضاؤك نسالك اللهم بكل اسم هو لك سميت به نفسك أنزلته في كتابك أو علمته أحدا من خلقك أو استأثرت به في علم الغيب عندك بأن تجعل القرآن العظيم ربيع قلوبنا يا رب اللهم اجعله جلاء لهمومنا وأحزاننا اللهم يا مفرج الكرب والهم فرج هم وغم وكرب المسلمين في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها اللهم ارحم البشرية جمعاء فإنك على كل شيء قدير اللهم اطعم الجوع واسق العطش اللهم وداوي الجرحى وفك أسرى اللهم وفرج الهم والغم فإنك على كل شيء قدير اللهم من علينا بالصلاة في المسجد الأقصى آمنين مطمئنين فإنك أنت الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وأقم الصلاة.